Let's go. We see the hype outside, right from the house.
Hey guys, Golden here, and welcome to day 12 of the Fortnite versus Apple trial recap video. Today, Epic went off on Apple, and they were literally screaming at the Apple representative everything wrong with the App Store, and today was easily one of the most chaotic days in the trial. But it was really clear that Epic brought up some really solid points against Apple, and with 4 days left of this trial, every single last day of this trial is going to be crucial for which company comes out on top. So make sure you guys watch until the very end to make sure you guys get all the news. But either way, you guys know I don't want to waste you guys this time, so let's get right on into. So today's trial actually started off by talking about crap that doesn't matter as usual, but then they actually talked about the difference between web apps, which are apps such as like NVIDIA GeForce Now, if you guys didn't know, which actually are run using Safari, and native apps, which are actually apps on the App Store. And Epic's lawyer actually starts off by explaining how many iOS features are not available for web apps. And lawyer actually continued explaining how there's 8 different software tools Apple offers for iOS app developers. However, web app developers cannot use 7 of the 8 of them. So this is kind of a counter to Apple and the judges saying, why don't you just make a web app? Why don't you just make Fortnite mobile on the web, which could run for iOS players? And obviously there are many differences. Web apps are clearly not a solution, because otherwise Apple's claiming that, you know, if you're a third-party app developer and you want a third-party app, just release it via Safari, because that's allowed with everything. You can release a web app without any restrictions. However, clearly that's not a solution. Now Epic actually continues to attack Apple, asking if Apple is aware that they rely on the innovations of many developers, and most of them are not Apple developers, to make its tools. So Apple says yes. So Epic's point is, clearly you guys are not actually the people creating your tools for the App Store. It is actually developers out there creating tools for your devices. However, for whatever reason, you're still taking a huge 30% cut out of all of their revenue. Epic then actually discusses iCloud, and Apple confirms you cannot use iCloud on Android devices. However, previously Apple claimed that they made switching to Android super easy and as easy as possible, but iCloud cannot actually be used on Android devices, making it harder to transfer files and such. Epic then actually shows an email that was from the Apple representative on the stand, Philip Schiller, I think that's how you say that. And Schiller actually sent this email to Steve Jobs, and I'm not going to read it all out. If you guys do want, you can pause the video and read it, but to summarize, it was basically Phil explaining how he believed Apple would have to change their commission to a lower value than 30%, to like 25 to 20%. However, now 10 years later, the commission is yet to change. Epic then actually shows another email appearing to show Apple explaining this quote-unquote plan they have. And if you guys remember from previous videos, Epic claimed that Apple made a plan to become a monopoly using the 30% commission. However, Apple denied ever discussing a plan, but now you can see proof of Apple explaining how they want only them to manage what's on their devices, and basically explained how if they allow freedom, this would obviously throw out their quote-unquote whole plan they have in place. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that sounds a little bit sus. Now, as a response, Apple actually claims that the plan was not a plan to keep iOS closed. However, who really knows? You know, the judge is going to be the decider of that. Who really knows who's on the right in the situation? But overall, clearly there was some sort of a plan, maybe not to keep iOS closed, but there was a plan. Now, Epic then actually shows an email of Schiller from Apple explaining whether Apple will have to publish App Store guidelines at some point in the future, and Epic explains how this shows Apple is not willfully transparent with its users. I mean, guys, the fact that Apple was literally wondering if they even had to publish guidelines to the public is kind of messed up. But anyways, Epic's lawyer then actually does a massive recap of everything that she wants from this lawsuit, and actually explains how Epic is not trying to kill the App Store, just simply allow alternatives. The same how Apple allows macOS App Store and also allows third-party apps on Mac devices. But anyways, Epic then actually talks about inappropriate apps on the App Store, which got through Apple's review. And the inappropriate apps were things like NSFW content. For example, if you guys know Discord, they actually allow NSFW content on Discord, like inappropriate content. And also Reddit has very inappropriate things on its app. And also there's this app which I can't really say the name of, but I'll put it on screen. Basically a really strange app to say the least. And basically Epic's point was clearly there were many apps that have gotten through Apple's review process, and obviously apps that break Apple's terms of service. However, they still got approved by Apple. So the point is clearly human review is not by any means perfect. But anyways, Epic then actually brings up Apple's claim from the beginning of this trial, where Apple actually discussed an app on the Epic Game Store called quote unquote itch.io, which has inappropriate apps on it. So basically Epic asks, do you know if itch.io's content is better or worse than that in the App Store? And Apple says no. So basically the point is, although Apple has continued to claim that itch.io is super inappropriate and obviously is on Epic Game Store, they have yet to do any research confirming if their App Store actually has worse content than the content on itch.io, which is kind of interesting to hear and definitely a really solid comeback from Epic. Epic then actually explains how Apple made $70 billion in 2017, and Epic actually explains how that means Apple took over $20 billion during that year, and Apple confirmed this. So I mean guys, $20 billion is a lot of money. And if you guys didn't know, last time Epic actually explained how Steve Jobs said himself he did not want to make any money from the App Store. He wanted all the money to go to the developers, but clearly it's not going to the developers because they made $20 billion in 1 year off the App Store, which is again a lot of money. Switching that topic a little bit, Epic then actually brings up documents which confirm Apple was actually aware it might need to work on competition issues even before Epic actually started this lawsuit. So Epic's point was clearly, although Apple continues to claim, we have competition on the App Store, they did actually confirm a while back that they were trying to work on competition issues in these emails and such. So overall, clearly that's a little bit weird because Apple kept claiming that they have competition and all this stuff, yet still even the company themselves admitted that they need to work on competition, which is exactly what Epic's claim is against Apple. Epic then actually says Apple quote unquote collects lots of information on Apple apps, but there's no way a user can opt out of this, correct? And Apple actually explains how there's ways to opt out of many of the data collection. So Epic's point was clearly Apple has all this control over their devices. They can, say if they want to track their users, do all this stuff. However, according to Apple, you can't actually opt out of that, which is a pretty good point coming back from Apple. However, still, it's clear that Apple is just getting bashed today. Epic then actually explained how Apple forced developers who were actually offering in-app purchases and subscriptions before the 30% was introduced to actually increase their prices and obviously also cost them revenue. So before obviously like 2010 or sometime around there, where Apple actually introduced this 30% commission, there were app developers who were already offering in-app purchases and subscriptions and stuff like that. However, because of Apple suddenly out of nowhere introducing a 30% commission, they were forced to increase their prices and also lose a lot of revenue from Apple, which is kind of messed up. By the way, by this point, Epic's representative was basically screaming at Apple. I mean, guys, it was getting heated in the courtroom. And Epic then actually says Apple did not consider costs for creating the apps for developers when they created the 30% commission, correct? And Apple says correct. And Epic adds on to this saying you don't have to consider costs when you're a monopoly charging monopoly profits. And Apple says I don't agree with that. But overall, guys, either way, Epic is throwing big shots at Apple and basically explaining how they never considered the cost of the developers for obviously making their apps and stuff like that when they added the 30% commission. They simply added it because they wanted money, or maybe it was for some other reasons, but overall, it's kind of clear they did it for money. And then Epic continues explaining how most businesses consider the costs of their developers or users when setting prices. Epic then continues with their solid points, asking you're not aware of any analysis within Apple about third-party payment processors having security issues, correct? And the Apple representative says he's not aware of any. So clearly Apple is not aware of any of these studies for digital or physical goods confirming if these third-party payment processors are actually bad for the security of the iPhone. So basically, Fortnite's payment processor, obviously there's a good chance it had no security issues. It was perfectly fine because it was from Epic Games themselves. However, Apple claimed that it would risk security on Apple devices. However, clearly they have no evidence to actually prove that this did cause any security issues for the Apple devices, so they really don't have any proof. But anyways, Epic then showed evidence that apparently Apple prefers to advertise its app versus others, and basically showed that when you search certain terms, Apple's apps are usually the first result, and Apple claims this is not the case, and they simply use the same algorithm for everything. But because Apple's apps obviously have a lot of installations and stuff like that, it shows up towards the app when you search certain search terms related to the app. So who really knows? Is Apple telling the truth? We don't really know, but still, Epic is clearly claiming that they are actually using their own advertising systems to try to promote their own apps versus other apps. But finally, for the one time in today's trial, Apple finally gets a chance to defend themselves, and they brought up a few good points and a few counterpoints that honestly weren't too bad. But overall, guys, it's safe to say Epic destroyed Apple today. I mean, guys, the points they threw at Apple were just insane. So Apple actually started off talking about the Enterprise program, a program from Apple, which if you guys didn't know from the last previous videos, it basically allows companies to upload apps without the approval from Apple, without any developer ID, anything like that. Then Apple actually explains how they trust that large corporations are not going to violate security and privacy. Apple then actually goes back to the plan that Epic accused them of a little bit ago, and Apple actually explained how if there was any plan, it was simply to protect users from security and privacy scams. So overall, according to Apple, that plan was actually to try to protect the iOS devices, not to obviously become a monopoly. I don't know who's right in this situation, but according to Apple, that was the reasoning. Apple then actually continues explaining how if third-party stores were allowed in the App Store, all the apps and services inside of these stores would not get reviewed by App Review, and Apple explains how this would kill App Review. Now, not a bad point by Apple at all, but still, I do feel like App Review could still go down on the App Store apps. However, obviously, they are correct for these third-party apps, but not every app has to be a third-party app store, you know what I mean? Like, there could still be apps on the App Store that Apple could obviously review, and also, they could still review these third-party app stores to make sure there's not really bad content on it. Yeah, I mean, still, according to Epic, they're explaining how app review is actually not needed because the security on the device is enough to protect the device. However, still, according to Apple, they clearly think that they do need app review. But anyways, guys, that is everything you need to know about day 12 of the Fortnite versus Apple trial. Today, Epic went off on Apple and brought up some really solid points against Apple. And Apple did actually have a chance to defend against some of these points, but in my opinion, they didn't really have a super solid defense. But still, tomorrow we're likely going to be here for them once again. But either way, if you guys want to know what ends up happening with this trial, make sure you guys all go down below and subscribe with those post notifications on, and drop a like if you guys appreciate me putting 7 hours of my day into one single video for you guys. We got 4 more days of trial, and it's really starting to heat up, so I will see you guys in tomorrow's recap video.